Well, it's all about jobs right now, and that's going to be the story for the next few years. We're talking about an effective unemployment rate of 13%, which is one of the highest we've seen in Australian history. And every time we think about an unemployment rate, we've got to think about the number of lives that are blighted by that, the families that are hurt, the sense of self-confidence, the scarring for young people entering a labour market in which it's near impossible to find a job. We've got about 13 job seekers for every vacancy right now, so it's an incredibly tough labour market, and every focus in policy needs to be on creating jobs.
But there does seem to be some green shoots there, wouldn't you acknowledge?
I think it's not as bad as it could have been. Certainly there's countries in the world that are doing worse, and largely I think this turns on our ability to control the virus. It's difficult to see sectors that require close in-person interaction, such as hospitality, really getting going until we get the virus under control. Which is where I think the sort of argy-bargy over border closures and suggesting that we need to trade off health against economics is fundamentally mistaken. We know from the Spanish flu experience that places that get the disease under control get the economic growth as a result. You don't have this idea that it's an either-or. You've got to put health first and the economic outcomes follow.
OK, well on that, I mean, Queensland hasn't recovered quite as well. Its unemployment rate, its effective unemployment rate, stands at 11.4%. Presumably, a lot of that has to do with the tourism sector. Is this evidence that borders need to reopen as soon as possible?
Oh, that goes to the question of whether you think that there's some trade-off between health and economics. Fundamentally, the evidence tells us that there's not. We've got a range of border closures. Of course, the Commonwealth was responsible for a significant border closure, which is impacting tourism, international education. But that's the appropriate measure right now. One of the reasons Australia has a lower fatality rate from coronavirus than many countries in the world is that we've been quick to put in place those public health measures. So we need to have no one playing political games, everyone focused on listening to the medical experts, get the disease under control, get those signed agreements in place, and so when a vaccine is created, Australians are able to get it and we're able to reopen the economy.
Victoria, Andrew, as you would know, returning to peak pandemic unemployment rates. Is this evidence, in your view, that when it comes to JobKeeper and when it comes to JobSeeker, that those levels shouldn't be wound back at the end of next month?
I think that's been true even before this pandemic hit. We've known that Newstart, now JobSeeker, simply wasn't livable. We've known that it's important to increase it, and calls from that have come from everyone from John Howard, the Business Council, to the ACTU and Labor. So we need to have a long-term solution on JobSeeker. We also need JobKeeper adapted, and so it's better targeted.
So is the extension not enough?
On JobSeeker, I think you need a permanent increase to the level. I don't think the level is currently livable, and now's the time to be increasing it, because all the money that's spent on JobSeeker flows straight back out to the economy. Unlike tax cuts to the top end, a quarter of which tend to be saved, spending on low-income Australians flows straight back out as fiscal stimulus. JobKeeper, the wage subsidy scheme, could be better targeted again. Still, the government's not targeting actual wages, as many other countries have done, but they're giving a flat rate payment. That'll be 2 flat rate payments after September, but still not good enough, Pete. We can do a whole lot better getting the data right in order to get the policy right.
Just on to claims from 60 Minutes and The Age newspaper this morning, Andrew, which alleges some branch stacking within the Liberal Party in Victoria. So are the Libs just as bad as the Labor Party when it comes to politics in Victoria?
This stuff makes me so angry as somebody who got into politics in order to serve my local community. When you see people who are getting into politics not because they want to be of service to others, but because they want something for themselves. You think about all of the great people who are crowded out. People who've been passionate for their whole lives about homelessness or about boosting business innovation, who don't get a go because people who are there as takers for themselves crowd them out. And that's true when the boot's on the other foot, frankly. We've got to get more terrific community campaigners into politics, and I really hope this is a wake-up call for the Victorian Liberal Party to open up. I know people in Victoria on the other side of the political fence who would make great members of Parliament. Who wouldn't say, as some of these people said in their interviews, that they want to stay away from constituent service? They would see that as a joy, a pleasure and an honour. And it's people like that we need to be attracting into our parliaments.
All right. Andrew, do you have a mask that you wanted to show?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Give us a look.
This is made by a Sydney designer, a woman by the name of Stephanie Howe, who's obviously struggling for work, as many designers are right now. But she's produced a great range of coronavirus masks. Very much encourage people to step out there and help our designers as they're staying
Whatever
safe.
you got to do to get by, huh? It's very fancy. It looks very fancy. Why don't you show it up just for a bit? See how it looks. Is that what you're going to be wearing around Parliament House?
There we go. No, absolutely.
Good stuff.
I'll be making the most of it, and everyone's masked up. It's a very different look in Parliament now, even than the last sittings.
Okay.
People taking public health very seriously, as we need to right now.